The security cameras went black at exactly 2:17 a.m., erasing all traces of Jasmine, Maya, and 3 other dancers who vanished from Westfield Mall's underground parking garage that night. Detective Marcus Shaw dismissed it as another case of women running from their pasts, until a notorious conman walked into the precinct claiming he had proof that something sinister was operating beneath the polished floors of America's most prestigious shopping center nightmare that had been hiding in plain sight for years. As Marcus reluctantly follows the trail of evidence provided by a criminal he despises, he uncovers a web of corruption reaching the highest levels of city government, forcing him to confront not just the monsters behind the disappearances, but the demons of his own troubled past. The bourbon stung Marcus Shaw's throat as he studied the case files scattered across his kitchen table. 5 women, all dancers at the Velvet Lounge, all vanished within 30 minutes of each other after their shift. He ran his fingers through his salt and pepper hair, his bloodshot eyes fixed on their faces. The captain had tossed him the case with a dismissive wave. Probably skipped town together. Happens all the time with these types. Marcus knew what that meant. Women's society preferred to overlook. His phone buzzed. Captain Reynolds again. Marcus let it go to voicemail and poured another finger of bourbon. His apartment walls seemed to close in around him, a shrine to failure. Newspaper clippings about his sister's disappearance 15 years ago yellowed on the corkboard. "I'll find you, Caroline," he whispered to her photograph, her smile frozen in time at 19, just like these 5 women might be now. When he finally arrived at the precinct the next morning, his head pounding, Officer Garcia handed him a coffee. "You look like hell, Shaw." "Feel worse," he muttered, scanning the reports. "Any witnesses come forward?" "Nothing useful. More security claims their system crashed." "Convenient, right? But the boss wants this wrapped up quick. Westfield brings in serious tax revenue." Marcus nodded, knowing what that meant. Pressure from above to label it as voluntary disappearances and move on. He drove to Westfield Mall as the morning crowds began filling its sprawling corridors. 3 stories of luxury retail topped by a glass dome, the pride of the city's recent urban renewal project. He flashed his badge at security and requested access to the parking garage and surveillance room. Detective Shaw, the head of security, extended his hand. "Thomas Reynolds, no relation to your captain, though we're good friends." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "I've prepared everything we have, which isn't much given the system failure." The surveillance room was state-of-the-art, dozens of screens showing every corner of the mall, except, conveniently, the lower parking section from 2 nights ago. "System crashed at 2:17 a.m., Reynolds explained. "Backup generators kicked in by 2:45, but by then ... they were gone," Marcus finished. "All 5 of them. Unfortunate timing." Very. Marcus studied the man's face. "Any other camera outages recently?" Reynolds stiffened slightly. "Routine maintenance. Issues, nothing significant." Marcus made his way to the lower garage, finding the exact spot where Jasmine Collins' car remained untouched. A designer purse still sat on the passenger seat, not the behavior of someone planning to disappear voluntarily. He noticed a service door nearby, partially concealed behind a concrete pillar. When he tried the handle, it was locked. "That area's restricted," came a voice behind him, a security guard hand resting casually near his holster. "Maintenance access only." "I'm investigating missing persons," Marcus replied, showing his badge. "Still need proper clearance." "Detective, more policy." As Marcus walked away, he noticed a small security camera above the service door, positioned to capture anyone using it, so there might be footage after all. He made a mental note to come back with a warrant. Something wasn't right. Women don't leave designer purses behind when they run away. They don't abandon their children, as Jasmine had supposedly done with her 6-year-old son now staying with her mother. And more security doesn't get nervous about maintenance doors when talking to detectives. As he exited through the main concourse, Marcus noticed something odd. For a mall so obsessed with security cameras, there were curious blind spot service corridors, certain storefronts, a section of the food court, selective surveillance. Marcus had seen this pattern before, not in malls, but in operations with something to hide. Marcus was halfway through a stack of witness statements when Officer Garcia knocked on his desk. "Someone here to see you, says it's about the dancers." The man who sauntered into the precinct wore an expensive suit that couldn't quite hide the cheapness beneath it. His smile was practiced, his handshake to firm. "Detective Shaw, an honor." Eddie Reeves. He extended a business card that read financial consultant. Marcus didn't take it. Reeves, the investment scammer who took $500,000 from the Wilsons last year. Eddie's smile didn't falter. All charges dropped. Misunderstanding. What do you want, Reeves? I'm busy. Information about your missing dancers. Eddie lowered his voice, leaning forward. Information nobody else has. From across the room, Marcus could feel the stares of other officers. Eddie Reeves was well known in the department, a con artist who'd slipped through their fingers multiple times, smart enough to stay just within legal boundaries, charming enough to talk his way out when he crossed them. Not interested in your games, Marcus said, turning back to his paperwork. Eddie placed a thumb drive on the desk. No games, just evidence. And what do you want in exchange? Money. Case dropped. Just your time, detective. Eddie's facade slipped for a moment, revealing something Marcus hadn't expected. Fear. 5 minutes. Private. Curiosity overcoming caution, Marcus led Eddie to an interview room. Talk. I was running a little operation at Westfield. Eddie straightened his cuffs. Nothing serious, just gathering leverage on certain mall executives with particular tastes. Blackmail, Marcus translated. Information acquisition, Eddie corrected. Hidden cameras in restrooms, changing rooms, the usual. Marcus's jaw tightened. That's multiple felonies. Focus, detective. While reviewing my footage, I captured something unintended. Eddie leaned forward. The service corridors. Behind the Nordstrom, there's a door that doesn't appear on any mall directory. 3 nights before the dancers vanished, I saw men carrying something. Large duffel bags. Heavy ones. Marcus crossed his arms. Could be merchandise. At 3 a.m. with armed guards. Eddie tapped the thumb drive. See for yourself. Why come to me with this? Why not sell it to the highest bidder? Eddie's smile vanished completely. My sister worked at Diamond Dolls in Memphis. 3 years ago, she and 4 other dancers disappeared after a shift. Police called it voluntary. Case closed. Marcus studied the man, looking for the lie. Con artists were professional liars, but the pain in Eddie's eyes seemed genuine. The thumb drive is a copy, Eddie continued. Insurance, if you will. There are people with significant investments in Westfield Mall. People who wouldn't appreciate my ... evidence. And you want immunity in exchange. I want justice, detective. Something I never thought I'd say with a straight face. Eddie stood. Watch the footage. Call me if you're interested in more. After Eddie left, Marcus debated turning the drive over to cybercrime. It was evidence of Eddie's illegal surveillance operation, but curiosity won out. The video showed exactly what Eddie had described, a nondescript door, men with duffel bags, armed security. Nothing definitively criminal, but decidedly suspicious for a shopping mall. Marcus searched the department database for Eddie Reeves. His rap sheet was impressively diverse: fraud, confidence schemes, impersonation, but no violent crimes. And there it was in his file. Sister Mariana Reeves reported missing in Memphis 3 years ago. That part, at least, wasn't a con. Marcus pocketed the thumb drive and made a decision he would likely regret. He texted the number on Eddie's business card. Tomorrow, 7 a.m., the diner on 12th. The response came immediately. I'll bring coffee. You bring an open mind. Marcus closed the file, knowing he was stepping off the department's prescribed path. But 5 women were missing, and the only lead he had came from a conman with a personal vendetta. Sometimes you had to dance with the devil to find your way through hell. 3 weeks earlier, Jasmine Collins tucked her son Miguel into bed, kissing his forehead as his eyes drifted closed. Mummy has to work tonight, baby, but I'll be here when you wake up. Her mother Elena appeared in the doorway, arms crossed. Another late shift. Jasmine followed her mother into the living room of their small apartment. Double shift. We need the money, Mum. You could get a real job. That community college course is expensive and doesn't pay bills now. Jasmine checked her makeup in the hallway mirror. Besides, I make more dancing than I would answering phones. Elena sighed, the argument well worn between them. Just be careful, those places attract the wrong kind of men. I know how to handle them. Jasmine kissed her mother's cheek. I'll be back by 8. The Velvet Lounge wasn't the seediest club in town, but it wasn't upscale either. Jasmine had worked there for 3 years, supporting Miguel since his father disappeared when pregnancy became inconvenient. In the dressing room, she found her friends preparing for the night. Maya adjusting her costume, Donnie warming up with stretches, Tasha counting last night's tips, and Zoe texting her boyfriend. Ladies, Jasmine greeted them, hanging her coat, ready for another exciting evening, separating fools from their money. Maya grinned. Speaking of fools, your admirer's back. 3rd time this week. Jasmine groaned. The weird one, with the renovation obsession. That's him. Keeps asking about your schedule. Great. Jasmine changed quickly. Management talked to him yet? Tasha shook her head. He tips well, they don't care. Men, Donnie muttered, thinking they own us because they toss a few bills our way. The night progressed like most others. Jasmine performed her routines, handled wandering hands with practiced deflection, and collected her tips. Then he appeared at her stage mid-50s. Expensive suit, eyes that never quite focused on her face. Beautiful performance, he said, sliding $100 bill forward. You deserve better than this place. Jasmine took the money with a practiced smile. Thanks for the compliment, I mean it. He leaned closer. I could help you. I'm overseeing the new development at Westfield. Private spaces there, very exclusive. I'm happy here, but thanks. She started to move away. His hand caught her wrist. Not roughly, but insistently. You haven't heard my offer. $5,000 for one private performance. For some important investors. Jasmine extracted her arm. Not interested. 10th, then. Just dancing. Nothing more. His smile tightened. Think of your son. Jasmine froze. She never mentioned Miguel to customers. How do you? I know all about you, Jasmine. Your mother Alina, your apartment on Lexington Avenue, Miguel's school. He slid a business card across the table. Call me when you're ready to provide a better life for him. She watched him leave, the card burning in her hand like a toxic thing. In the dressing room, she found Maya, hands shaking. You too? Jasmine asked. Maya nodded. Man in a suit knew everything about me. My sister in Phoenix, my student loans. By closing time, they discovered all 5 of them had been approached with similar offers. Different men, same script, same knowledge of their personal lives. This isn't random, Tasha said as they gathered in the parking lot. They're targeting us specifically. We should go to the police, Donnie suggested. Zoe laughed bitterly. And, say what? Some rich guys offered us money. They'll tell us to take it or leave it. It's the personal information that worries me, Jasmine said. How do they know about our families? Maya's expression hardened. My sister got a phone call yesterday. Someone asking if she'd heard from me lately. Said they were an old friend. Silence fell over the group. I've been looking into something, Maya finally said. Dancers disappearing. 3 from Club Diamond last year, 4 from Sapphires the year before. Girls move around, Tasha said uncertainly. Not without telling anyone. Not all at once. Maya pulled out her phone. I started a journal. Patterns, names, dates. Always after mall renovations in the area. Jasmine felt cold despite the warm night. We need to document everything. If something happens, nothing's going to happen, Zoe insisted. We'll stay together, watch each other's backs. Jasmine thought. About Miguel sleeping peacefully at home. About the man who knew where he went to school. I want to look at what you've found, she told Maya. After tomorrow's shift. We'll go through it together. None of them knew that by the end of tomorrow's shift, all 5 would vanish without a trace. Their cars left in the parking garage, personal belongings untouched, as if they had simply stepped out of their lives in an instant. The last security footage showed Jasmine receiving a text message, looking up with sudden fear, then walking toward a service door where the camera feed abruptly cut to black. This is illegal, Marcus hissed as Eddie picked the lock on the service door. I should arrest you right now. But you won't, Eddie replied, the lock clicking open, because you want answers more than you want to bust me for a misdemeanor. It was 3 a.m., the mall long closed. Using the security guard rotations Eddie had memorized during his surveillance operations, they had precisely 18 minutes before the next patrol. How do you know so much about this place? Marcus asked as they slipped inside. I make it my business to know things about people with money, Eddie replied, switching on a small flashlight. It's surprisingly profitable. The service corridor stretched before them, utilitarian concrete walls a stark contrast to the mall's polished marble. Pipes ran along the ceiling, electrical conduits along the walls. Maintenance tunnels, Marcus observed. Every mall has them. Not like these. Eddie gestured ahead. Most mall service areas are cramped, minimal. These are large enough to drive vehicles through. Cost a fortune to build. They moved quickly, Eddie consulting a hand-drawn map. According to the construction plans I acquired, there should be a central hub ahead, connects all wings of the mall. Instead, they found a heavy security door with an electronic lock fob, more sophisticated than typical for maintenance areas. That's not on any blueprint, Eddie murmured. Fancy. Marcus examined the keypad. This is government-grade security. What's a mall hiding that needs this level of protection? Eddie produced a small electronic device, Let's find out. What is that? Signal interceptor catches electromagnetic feedback from recent keypad entries. Eddie attached it to the panel. Most people don't realize keypads retain heat signatures or wear patterns. The device blinked, displaying a sequence of numbers. You just carry high-tech burglary tools around? Marcus asked incredulously. Eddie shrugged. Boy Scout motto, be prepared. The door opened with a pneumatic hiss, revealing not maintenance equipment but a pristine white corridor. Recessed lighting illuminated what looked more like a medical facility than mall infrastructure. What the hell? Marcus whispered. They moved cautiously forward, passing empty rooms with observation windows. One contained hospital beds. Another had what appeared to be medical equipment. This isn't mall maintenance, Marcus said. This looks like ... processing, Eddie finished grimly. Intake, examination, preparation. A distant sound made them frenzy. Approaching from a connecting corridor. Hide, Eddie whispered, pulling Marcus into an alcove. 2 security guards walked past, their conversation becoming audible. New arrivals tomorrow, 5 this time. Quality, premium. Younger than last batch, already tested and prepped at the offsite. Good. The Dubai client was unhappy with the last shipment, said the merchandise was damaged. Their voices faded. As they turned a corner, Marcus felt sick. They're talking about people, not products. Human trafficking, Eddie confirmed. High-end operation judging by the facilities. A sudden alarm blared through the corridor, red lights flashing. Perimeter breach detected. Security protocol activated, announced an automated voice. Time to go, Eddie said, already moving toward their entry point. They raced back through the corridors, the sound of boots echoing behind them. As they reached the service door, a security guard appeared, drawing his weapon. Stop, security. Marcus identified himself. Police, lower your weapon. The guard hesitated, then spoke into his radio. The response seemed to surprise him. He slowly lowered his gun. There's been a misunderstanding. Detective, this area is restricted for legitimate security reasons. A new voice called from behind them. Detective Shaw, unexpected. Thomas Reynolds, the head of security, approached with a professional smile. I see you've discovered our new loss prevention center. Loss prevention doesn't need hospital beds, Marcus countered. Reynolds' smile didn't waver. Part of our employee wellness program, on-site medical facilities for staff. He gestured to the exit. I'd be happy to give you an official tour during business hours, with proper clearance, of course. I'll get a warrant, Marcus promised. Of course. Though I should inform you we've already contacted Captain Reynolds. He assured us he'd handle any ... jurisdictional overreach. Marcus felt Eddie tense beside him, ready to run or fight. He placed a restraining hand on the conman's arm. We're leaving for now. Outside in the parking lot, Marcus punched the roof of his car. They're not even trying to hide it. They know they're protected. Welcome to my world, Eddie said. Justice is for people who can afford it. I need evidence, real evidence, something they can't explain away with employee wellness programs. Eddie studied him thoughtfully. Are you willing to bend more rules, detective? Because playing by the book won't work against people who own the publishers, Marcus thought. Of the 5 missing women, of his sister Caroline, of merchandise being shipped to Dubai, what did you have in mind? Marcus spread the documents across his living room floor. Property records, newspaper clippings, construction permits, and CORPORATE filings. Eddie had acquired them through means Marcus pretended not to notice. Westfield Mall wasn't always Westfield, Marcus observed, examining the oldest documents. Originally built in 1985 as Parkview Plaza, foreclosed in 2005, purchased by Meridian Development Group. Eddie nodded. Meridian is a subsidiary of Pinnacle Investments, which is owned by Blackstone Capital Partners. Shell companies within shell companies. Exactly, but follow the money and it leads to one man, Robert Crane. Marcus recognized the name, the philanthropist. He funds half the city's charities. Public face of respectability, Eddie confirmed, while his companies handled the dirty work. Plausible deniability. Marcus studied a timeline they'd constructed. Meridian purchases failing more. Major renovation begins. 5 women disappear from nearby nightclub. The investigation goes nowhere. Mall reopens with increased security and restricted areas. Now repeat that pattern in 7 other cities, Eddie said, pointing to similar cases across the country. Memphis, Phoenix, Atlanta, Denver. Always the same. Renovation, disappearances, case closed. Marcus examined newspaper articles about previous incidents. All ruled voluntary disappearances. No bodies, no evidence of foul play, because the evidence disappears with the women. Eddie's voice hardened. My sister Mariana vanished 3 years ago in Memphis. Police found her car in the Oak Tree Mall parking garage. Detective told me she probably ran off with a boyfriend, but you didn't believe that. Mariana was raising our kid brother alone after our parents died. She wouldn't abandon him. Eddie's composure cracked slightly. She was taking night classes, working toward a nursing degree, had plans. Future Marcus thought of his own sister, Caroline. The parallels were uncomfortable. What happened to your brother? Foster system. I try to send money when I can. Eddie's expression closed. Not exactly guardian material with my record. Marcus turned to more recent documents. Westfield's latest renovation plans. They've added an entire sublevel that doesn't appear on public records, he noted. Officially for mechanical systems and storage, required special permits approved. BY City Councilman Phillips, who sits on the board of Crane's Charitable Foundation, Eddie added. Marcus studied security reports from the past year. Multiple incidents of trespassing in restricted areas. Suspects apprehended by more security, never processed through police. Witnesses. Eddie suggested people who saw something they shouldn't. A pattern emerged, a carefully constructed system with tentacles reaching into city government, law enforcement, and legitimate business. The mall was merely the visible part. We need to find someone who worked on the renovation, Marcus decided. Someone who saw the actual construction, not just the approved plans. Already on it, Eddie produced a list of contractors. Most were brought in from out of state, paid well above market rate, for their skills or their silence. Marcus wondered. Both, probably, but I found one local guy, Mendez, electrical contractor, worked on the sublevel for 3 weeks, then was fired without explanation. Marcus checked his watch. It's late. We'll talk to him tomorrow. As Eddie gathered the documents, Marcus asked the question that had been bothering him. Why did you really come to me with this, Eddie? You could have taken your evidence to the FBI, anyone with more resources than a washed-up detective. Eddie paused. Those agencies have bureaucracy, protocols. By the time they acted, any evidence would be gone. He met Marcus's gaze directly. And I did my homework on you, detective. You lost someone to makes you dangerous to them and useful to me. Marcus couldn't argue with the assessment. They were both driven by ghosts, searching for answers. In the darkness beneath a shopping mall's polished floors, Dawn found Marcus parked outside Eddie's motel, questioning his life choices. Partnering with a known criminal violated every protocol he'd sworn to uphold. Yet official channels were clearly compromised. His phone buzzed. Captain Reynolds. Sure, my office. 1 hour. We need to discuss your extracurricular activities, though. They were watching him already. Not surprising. Eddie emerged from his room, sliding into the passenger seat with 2 coffee cups. You look terrible. Thanks. Marcus accepted the coffee. My captain wants to see me. They know we were at the mall, definitely. Question is, what's my play? Eddie sipped his coffee. Depends how deep your captain is involved. Could be taking orders, could be taking payoffs. Reynolds is a lot of things, but corrupt isn't one of them. Marcus paused. At least, I didn't think so. Power doesn't always corrupt with money, Eddie noted. Sometimes it's pressure, threats, or just convincing someone they're serving a greater good. Marcus drove toward the station, mind racing. I'll feel him out. Meanwhile, I need you to find Luis Mendez. Already did. He's working a construction site downtown, starts at 9. You've been busy. Eddie shrugged. Insomnia has its uses. At the station, Captain Reynolds was waiting, expression grim. Close the door, Marcus. Marcus complied, bracing for the reprimand. What the hell were you thinking, breaking into Westfield with a known felon? Reynolds demanded, following a lead on missing persons. By committing multiple felonies yourself. Reynolds leaned forward. More security contacted the commissioner directly. They're threatening a formal complaint. Let them, Marcus replied. And I can ask in an official hearing why a shopping mall has hospital beds in its maintenance tunnels. Reynolds paused. What are you talking about? Marcus studied his captain's reaction, genuine confusion, not deflection. There's something happening at Westfield. Something big involving the missing dancers. But every time I push, I hit walls. Marcus, ... Reynolds' voice softened. I know missing women cases affect you, after Caroline, but breaking the law won't bring her back. This isn't about Caroline, Marcus lied. It's about 5 women who vanished from a parking garage with conveniently malfunctioning cameras. Reynolds sighed. I'm reassigning the case to Rodriguez. You can't. I can and I am. You're too emotionally involved. Reynolds held up his hand against protests. Take a week off, mandatory leave. Get your head straight. Marcus realized arguing would only make things worse. Fine, and stay away from Eddie Reeves. He's using you. Understood. Outside, Eddie was waiting across the street. Judging by your expression, it went poorly. I'm off the case. Mandatory leave. Eddie grinned. Perfect. Now you have no official constraints. I also have no official authority or resources. Details. Eddie gestured toward his car. I took the liberty of acquiring some equipment while you were getting fired. I wasn't fired. I was semantics. Coming, Marcus hesitated. Working with Eddie officially would end his career if discovered, but walking away meant abandoning 5 missing women to whatever fate awaited them beneath them all. We do this my way, Marcus decided. No more breaking and entering, no theft. We find evidence we can take to higher authorities. Scout's honor, Eddie replied, raising 3 fingers. You were never a Boy Scout. True, but I respect your boundaries, detective, for now. As they drove toward the construction site to find Luis Mendez, Marcus wondered which was more dangerous, trafficking operation they were investigating, or the conman sitting beside him with his own agenda. Both, probably, but at least Eddie's agenda aligned with his own, finding the missing women and exposing whatever lay beneath Westfield Mall's polished floors. You know, Eddie said casually, I've never actually worked with law enforcement before. Usually, it's the opposite. Don't get used to it. Wouldn't dream of it. Eddie smiled. But I must admit, it's refreshing to be on the right side of justice for once. We'll see about that, Marcus muttered. Unconvinced that Eddie Reeves had ever been on the right side of anything, Luis Mendez had nothing to tell them. His memory of working at Westfield was remarkably vague and unusual for a man whose livelihood depended on detailed electrical work. More troubling was his obvious fear, his insistence that he'd signed confidentiality agreements, and his relief when they finally left. Someone got to him, Eddie said as they drove away. Paid him off, or scared him silent, Marcus nodded. Did you see how he flinched when I mentioned the survival? He knows something, but won't talk. Eddie frowned. We need another angle. They drove to Jasmine Collins' apartment, where Marcus had arranged to meet her mother. Elena Collins greeted them with the weary suspicion of someone who'd dealt with unhelpful authorities before. Have you found her? She asked immediately. Not yet, Marcus admitted. But we're following several leads. May we come in? Elena led them into a modest living room where a young boy played quietly with action figures. Miguel, Elena explained. Softly, he keeps asking when his mother is coming home. Marcus knelt beside the boy. Hey Miguel. I'm Detective Shaw. I'm looking for your mum. Miguel looked up with solemn eyes. Are you going to bring her back? I'm going to try very hard, Marcus promised. While Eddie distracted Miguel with magic. Trickster skill. Marcus hadn't known the conman possessed. Marcus questioned Elena about Jasmine's final days. She was worried about something, Elena recalled. Taking different routes home, checking the locks twice. She mentioned a man at the club who knew too much about our family. Did she leave anything behind? Notes, computer files? Elena hesitated. She was close with her friend Maya. They were working on something together. Maya would come over. They'd talk in whispers. Maya Rodriguez. She's one of the missing women, Marcus confirmed. Did they keep records of whatever they were working on? Jasmine didn't. But Maya was always typing on her laptop or phone. Elena gestured toward Jasmine's bedroom. You can look around if you think it will help. Jasmine's room was neat, organized, not the chaos of someone planning to disappear. On her desk sat framed photos of Miguel, school notices, and bills carefully arranged for payment. This doesn't look like someone running away, Marcus observed. Eddie examined the room with practiced efficiency. Secret compartments, hidden storage. They searched thoroughly, finding nothing until Eddie checked beneath the mattress. Bingo, he said, extracting a tablet. Password protected. Marcus took it. Can you crack it, please? Eddie connected a small device to the tablet. Basic consumer encryption. Minutes later, they accessed the device. Not Jasmine's tablet. Maya's, borrowed or given for safekeeping. Look at this, Marcus said, opening a notes application. Maya had created a detailed journal spanning months. Entries documented strange occurrences at the mall, rumors from other clubs, patterns of disappearances across multiple cities. The most recent entry read, connecting the dots. Always after renovations. Always women who won't be missed or believed. Meeting Jay tomorrow. Says he works security at Westfield during construction. Claims he saw processing rooms being built. Says they're not just taking dancers but selling them through shell companies disguised as exclusive entertainment services. Need to document everything before going to authorities. Too dangerous to keep investigating alone, she knew, Eddie said quietly. They were gathering evidence. Marcus continued scrolling, finding a final entry timestamped just hours before the disappearances. Emergency. Jay texted says they know about us meeting at the club tonight to plan next steps. If anything happens, evidence back up at M83 to 7. M83 to 7. Marcus frowned. What does that mean? Eddie's expression changed. It's a storage unit. Standard alphanumeric system. How do you know that? Because I've used them. Low security storage facilities often use simple designation systems. M is probably the building, 83 the unit number, 7 the level or section. Marcus was already searching. Maya's contacts. Here Metro Storage, off Highway 16. Eddie nodded. Makes sense. Cheap, anonymous cash payments. We need to get there now, Marcus said, showing Alina the tablet. May we borrow this? It might help find Jasmine. Alina nodded, tears in her eyes. Bring her home to Miguel, please. As they drove toward the storage facility, Marcus's thoughts returned to the journal entries. These women weren't random victims, they were witnesses who'd gotten too close to the truth. And now he and Eddie were following the same dangerous path. The storage unit yielded a treasure trove of USB drives, photographs, handwritten notes, and printed emails. Maya had compiled extensive documentation of their investigation, including security vulnerabilities, employee schedules, and possible witnesses. Smart woman, Eddie commented, examining a detailed map of Westfield's service corridors. She even noted camera blind spots. They knew too much, Marcus said grimly. That's why they were taken. Among the documents was an employee application for Westfield Mall. Maya was trying to infiltrate, Marcus realized, get inside access. Eddie studied the mall's staffing patterns. Night cleaning crew has minimal supervision. Security focused on exterior patrols after hours. Marcus understood immediately. I need to get inside. Long-term surveillance, my thinking exactly. Eddie held up the job application. Janitorial positions don't require extensive background checks. 2 days later, Marcus shunned the name. Mark Sullivan began work as a night janitor at Westfield Mall. Eddie had created a convincing identity, complete with references, work history, and a social security number that Marcus chose not to question. Just remember, Eddie warned as he dropped Marcus off for his first shift. Mall security carries real weapons and has no legal constraints. Be careful. The night cleaning crew was a mix of immigrants, students, and people down on their luck. No one asked questions or showed much interest in the quiet new guy who kept to himself. Marcus's supervisor, Hector, assigned him to the food court and North Wing restrooms. Finish by 3 a.m., then help with floor polishing. For 3 nights, Marcus performed his duties while mapping the mall's after-hours operations. Security rotations, access points, camera positions, all mentally noted and later recorded in a journal hidden in his apartment. On the 4th night, he noticed activity near the service door they'd previously investigated. 2 security guards and a man in a business suit entered using a keycard. Marcus wheeled his cleaning cart closer, pretending to mop while straining to hear their conversation. Shipment arriving Thursday, the suited man was saying. Need the processing rooms prepped by Wednesday. What about the current merchandise? One guard asked. Moving to the secondary facility tonight. Too many inquiries about the dancers. That detective is becoming a problem. Marcus froze. They were talking about him. I thought he was removed from the case, the second guard said. Officially, yes. Unofficially, he's still digging. Working with that Conman Reeves. The suited man's voice hardened. Find out what they know. Mr. Crane wants this contained before the gala next month. Too many important clients attending to risk exposure. They disappeared through the service door, leaving Marcus with cold confirmation. Robert Crane, the philanthropist, was directly involved. Over the next 2 nights, Marcus expanded his cleaning route, volunteering for extra areas that offered access to restricted sections. He planted small wireless cameras Eddie had provided in ventilation ducts overlooking key doors. On his 7th night, Marcus noticed another janitor watching him. Middle-aged woman who kept her distance but seemed to track his movements. When their shifts ended, she approached him in the parking lot. You're not a real janitor, she said without preamble. Marcus tensed, ready to deny everything. Neither was the last guy who asked too many questions. She continued. He disappeared. 3 months ago. I don't know what you're talking about, Marcus replied cautiously. The service corridor behind Nordstrom, the keypad entry, the elevator that doesn't appear on any directory. She looked around nervously. I've cleaned here for 6 years. Seen things. What kind of things? Women brought in after hours, security, escorts always through that door. She pressed a piece of paper into his hand. I'm quitting tomorrow. Moving to my sister's in Arizona, but someone should know. The paper contained an access code and times. Elevator override, she whispered, changes weekly. This is current through Friday. Before Marcus could question her further, she hurried away. That night, Eddie's cameras captured everything Marcus needed: security using the service entrance, escorting a medical team, and most damning, to women being transported on gurneys, heavily sedated but clearly alive. We've got them, Marcus told Eddie the next morning. Proof of human trafficking operating from Westfield Mall. Eddie studied the footage. Enough to convince your captain, maybe, but there's more. Marcus showed him the elevator code. Tomorrow night, we see where this elevator leads. And the women being moved tonight. Marcus checked his watch. I'll follow the transport. You monitor the cameras. We need to find the secondary facility, she mentioned. Be careful, Eddie warned. If they've identified you as a threat, they're watching, I know, but those dancers are running out of time. As Marcus prepared for surveillance, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were racing against an invisible clock, that somewhere beneath the mall's polished floors 5 women were awaiting a fate he couldn't bear to imagine. Marcus followed the unmarked van from Westfield Mall to an industrial area outside city limits. The building, a nondescript warehouse with the logo Global Logistics Solutions, was surrounded by a high fence and patrolled by private security. I've got the location, he told Eddie via phone. No way to get closer without being spotted. Hold position, Eddie replied. I'm running the address through property records. Marcus observed the facility through binoculars. Loading docks, security cameras, and guards with military precision, not typical warehouse security. Eddie called back 30 minutes later. Global Logistics Solutions is owned by Meridian Shipping, which is, let me guess, a subsidiary of one of Crane's companies. Bingo, but here's where it gets interesting. The building has permits for cold storage and perishable goods processing. Power usage is off the charts for a facility that size. Medical equipment, Marcus suggested. Refrigeration units, exactly. And guess who signed off on the permits? City Councilman Phillips again. Marcus watched as another van arrived at the warehouse. This goes deeper than we thought. The entire approval chain is compromised. Building permits, zoning, inspections, money talks, Eddie said. But we need more than suspicions. We need documentation linking these shell companies to actual trafficking. I'll bring what we have to Captain Reynolds tomorrow, Marcus decided. Even if he's skeptical, this is too big to ignore. The next morning, Marcus organized their evidence: photographs, camera footage, property records, and Maya's research. The case was circumstantial but compelling when viewed as a whole. Captain Reynolds listened without interruption as Marcus presented everything, his expression growing grimmer by the minute. This is ... double quotes. Reynolds rubbed his face. Jesus, Marcus. If you're right, this implicates half the city leadership. I know it sounds like a conspiracy theory, Marcus acknowledged. But the evidence is troubling but inconclusive, Reynolds finished. Suspicious activities, shell companies, irregular permits. None of this directly proves human trafficking. What about the women on gurneys? Could be legitimate medical transport, employee health services, like they claimed. Marcus leaned forward. You know that's bullshit, Reynolds sighed. What I know doesn't matter. We need hard evidence that would stand up in court. Names, transactions, victims. We're working on it. Reynolds raised an eyebrow. You're still working with Reeves, aren't you? Marcus didn't answer. Be careful, Reynolds warned. This morning, the commissioner himself asked about your activities, said he'd received concerns about your methods. From who, he wouldn't say, but the pressure came from high up. Reynolds lowered his voice. Someone's watching you, Marcus. Someone with influence. As Marcus left the station, his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Careful, detective. Some questions are dangerous to ask. Eddie was waiting at their designated meeting spot, a diner 3 miles from the precinct. We've got problems, Marcus said, showing him the text. Eddie seemed unsurprised. They're getting nervous. Good. They're threatening me. It means we're close. Eddie pushed a folder across the table. While you were with your captain, I got into the city's financial system. You hacked. Marcus lowered his voice. You hacked the city government. Technically, I used existing credentials. From a clerk who really should use better passwords than his dog's name. Eddie opened the folder. Look at these transfers. The documents showed substantial payments from Blackstone Capital to offshore accounts, then smaller amounts flowing back to personal accounts belonging to city officials. Money laundering, Marcus realized. They're paying off officials through shell companies, not just officials. Eddie pointed to a highlighted name. Your commissioner received monthly payments for 3 years. Marcus felt sick. The entire department could be compromised. Not everyone, Eddie corrected, but enough to ensure investigations go nowhere. Reynolds is clean, Marcus insisted. He seemed genuinely disturbed by all this. For now, Eddie agreed, but they'll approach him soon. Offer money or apply pressure. Marcus's phone buzzed again. Another text. The storage unit was a mistake. So is the night shift at Westfield. They knew everything. They were always one step ahead. We need to move faster, Marcus decided. Tonight we use that elevator code. They'll be expecting us, Eddie warned. Counting on it. They're watching but not acting. They want to know what we know before silencing us. Eddie studied him with newfound respect. You're thinking like a criminal now, detective. I'm thinking like someone with nothing to lose, Marcus corrected, and everything to find. Before risking the elevator access, Marcus needed more concrete evidence. Eddie had discovered a name in the financial records, James Wilson, former security supervisor at Westfield who'd left abruptly 6 months ago. Finding Wilson wasn't difficult. The hard part was convincing him to talk. I don't know anything, Wilson insisted when they cornered him outside his apartment, a man in his 50s with the watchful eyes of someone who'd seen too much. We know you worked security during the renovation, Marcus said. We know you left suddenly with no notice. Got a better offer elsewhere. From who? Eddie asked. Because your employment records show you haven't worked since. Wilson's facade cracked slightly. Look, whatever you think you know, we know about the sublevel, Marcus interrupted. The processing rooms. The women transported on gurneys. Wilson paled. You can't prove anything. We're not here to accuse you, Marcus assured him. We want to understand what's happening. 5 women disappeared from that mall 2 weeks ago. Something shifted in Wilson's expression. More dancers, Marcus nodded. You've seen this before. After a long silence, Wilson gestured to his apartment. Not out here. Inside the sparse apartment, Wilson poured himself a whiskey with shaking hands. I was night supervisor for 3 years. Good job. Decent benefits. Then the renovation started. When Robert Crane bought the property, Eddie noted. Newsom nodded. New management brought in their own security team for certain areas. Told us it was proprietary retail technology. Trade secrets. But I saw things during my rounds. What things? Marcus pressed. Service entrance by the north parking garage. Late night deliveries. Women escorted inside, never coming out. Wilson drained his glass. I reported it to my supervisor. Next day, I'm called to a meeting with mall management. Let me guess, Eddie said. They offered you money to stay quiet at first. Wilson poured another drink. Then when I hesitated, they showed me pictures of my daughter's college dorm. My ex-wife's house in Phoenix. Said accidents happen to nosy people's families. Marcus exchanged glances with Eddie. So you quit. With a severance package and a strong suggestion to move away. Wilson's laugh was hollow. I lasted 3 months in Florida before the money ran out. Came back hoping they'd forgotten about me. What exactly did you see in that swivel? Marcus asked. Wilson hesitated, then retrieved a burner phone from a kitchen drawer. I took pictures before they caught me. Kept them as insurance. The photos showed clinical rooms with medical equipment, holding cells disguised as storage, and most disturbing transaction records on a computer screen listing merchandise with prices and destinations. They're selling them, Marcus said. Quietly, internationally. Wilson nodded. High-end trafficking, not street-level prostitution. Exclusive entertainment for wealthy clients worldwide. The dancers are just part of it. They take women who won't be missed or believed. Like my sister, Eddie murmured. Why hasn't anyone exposed this? Marcus demanded. Anyone who tries disappears or gets discredited. Local police are paid off. Feds need more evidence than frightened witnesses. Wilson handed Marcus the phone. Take it. Maybe you'll have better luck. We need you to testify, Marcus urged. Make a statement. Wilson shook his head. I have a daughter. I can't risk it. We can protect you, Marcus promised, though he wasn't entirely sure how. No one can protect against these people. Wilson's eyes darted nervously to the window. You should go. Now. As they left, Marcus noticed a black SUV parked across the street. We're being watched. Always, Eddie replied grimly. They drove in silence, processing Wilson's confirmation of their worst suspicions. We'll check back tomorrow, Marcus decided. Give him time to reconsider testifying. But when they returned the next morning, Wilson's apartment was empty, dishes still in the sink, coffee half finished on the counter, signs of a hasty departure, or something worse. They got to him, Eddie said, examining the door lock. No forced entry. Marcus found Wilson's wallet still on the nightstand. He didn't leave voluntarily. Another loose end tied up, Eddie observed bitterly, like clockwork. As they left the apartment, Marcus's phone rang. Captain Reynolds. Sure, where are you? We've got a body you need to see. The victim had been pulled from the river. 50s, signs of torture before drowning. James Wilson's final warning to anyone who might expose the truth. Beneath Westfield Mall, Wilson's death was officially ruled a suicide. The medical examiner recently appointed by the mayor determined that the signs of trauma occurred post-mortem. Despite contradicting evidence, this is insane. Marcus fumed in Reynolds' office. The man was clearly tortured before being dumped. In the river, Reynolds looked defeated. The commissioner closed the case personally. Said Wilson had gambling debts, depression, and the missing fingers, the cigarette burns, fish damage, decomposition. Reynolds couldn't meet Marcus's eyes. My hands are tied, sure, so that's it. They murder a witness, and we just accept the cover-up. I didn't say that. Reynolds lowered his voice. The commissioner ordered me to terminate your employment. Said you've been harassing Westfield employees, trespassing, making unfounded accusations against prominent citizens. Marcus felt the floor shift beneath him. 15 years on the force, ended with a lie. You're firing me. Officially, yes. Reynolds slid a document across the desk. But unofficially, I'm placing you on administrative leave pending review. Keeps you on payroll. Keeps your badge active in the system. Why? Because something stinks about all this. Reynolds finally met his gaze. I've known you too long to believe you've lost your mind. But I can't openly oppose the commissioner. Marcus understood. You're playing both sides. I'm hedging my bets. Reynolds' expression hardened. If you're right about Westfield, about Crane, you'll need someone inside the department. Someone with access. And if I'm wrong, then I've given a good cop time to get his head straight before making a career-ending mistake. Reynolds stood. Turn in your service weapon. Clear out your desk. Make it look convincing. As Marcus emptied his desk under the watchful eyes of internal affairs, he felt the weight of watching officers' stares. Some sympathetic, others judgmental. News traveled fast. Outside, Eddie waited in his car. That bad. Officially terminated. Marcus tossed his box of belongings in the back seat. Unofficially, Reynolds is keeping my credentials active. He believes us, or at least, he's willing to consider the possibility. Small victories. Eddie pulled into traffic. Meanwhile, Wilson's death makes our timeline shorter. They're cleaning house. Marcus's phone rang. Alina Collins, Jasmine's mother. Detective, someone broke into our apartment, she said, voice shaking. They took Jasmine's things, all her papers, her computer. Miguel is terrified. Are you safe now? We're at my sister's. But detective, they left a message on Miguel's bed. It said stop looking or he's next. Cold fury replaced Marcus's despair. I'll call you back, Alina. Stay where you are. He explained the situation to Eddie, who immediately changed direction. Where are we going? Marcus asked. My place. We need to regroup. Plan our next move. Eddie's place turned out to be an abandoned office building repurposed as a living space. Monitors, equipment, and research materials filling what had once been a conference room. Welcome to my humble abode, Eddie said without irony. It's secure, off-grid electricity, no digital footprint. You've been preparing for this, Marcus realized. 3 years. Eddie activated a series of screens showing surveillance feeds, financial records, and maps. Since Mariana disappeared, I've been tracking Crane's operation across 7 cities, learning patterns, building evidence. Why didn't you tell me? Trust issues. Eddie shrugged. Occupational hazard. Marcus surveyed the impressive setup and now they've threatened a child. Eddie's expression darkened. That crosses a line even I respect. We need to accelerate our timeline, Marcus decided. Tonight we use that elevator code. Find those women. Security will be heightened after Wilson. We'd need a distraction. Marcus thought of Alina and Miguel, now targets because of his investigation of Wilson's body in the river. Of 5 missing women who might still be alive. Then we create one, he said. Something big enough to pull security away from the sub-level. Eddie studied him with newfound respect. What exactly did you have in mind, detective? Something criminals excel at, Marcus replied grimly. Creating chaos as darkness fell, they finalized their plan. Eddie would trigger the mall's fire suppression system in the north wing, away from the service corridor but significant enough to demand security's attention. Marcus would use the diversion to access the elevator. If I'm not back in 30 minutes, assume I've been caught, Marcus instructed, checking the burner phone they'd established as their emergency line. And if you are, get everything we've collected to the FBI field office in the next state. Reynolds will help authenticate it. Eddie hesitated. Sure, ... This is suicide mission territory. Probably, Marcus acknowledged. But those women are running out of time, and I'm already a dead man as far as my career goes. Cheerful thought, Eddie muttered, handing him a small device. Wireless camera. Show me what you find down there. As Marcus prepared to leave, Eddie added, for what it's worth, I was wrong about cops. Some of you actually give a damn. And I was wrong about con artists, Marcus replied. Some of you have principles. Don't spread that around, Eddie warned. Bad for my reputation. The mall was closing when Marcus arrived, last-minute shoppers being ushered toward exits. He wore his janitorial uniform, head down as he pushed a cleaning cart through service corridors. In position, he murmured into his concealed microphone. Roger that, Eddie replied through his earpiece. Distraction in 3 minutes. Marcus positioned himself near the restricted service door, pretending to clean while watching security rotations. 2 guards patrolled this section, passing at predictable intervals. His earpiece crackled. Showtime. Seconds later, alarms blared throughout the mall. Sprinklers activated in the north wing, followed by automated announcements directing any remaining patrons to emergency exits. The response was immediate. Security personnel rushed toward the commotion, radios buzzing with confusion. The corridor emptied except for 1 guard who remained at the restricted door. One still at the door, Marcus reported. Working on it, Eddie replied. The guard's radio suddenly erupted with static. Then a voice shouting, all units to north entrance, suspicious package, reported. The guard hesitated, then jogged toward the emergency. Leaving his post, Marcus moved quickly, approaching the keypad and entering the code from the female janitor. The door unlocked with a soft click. Inside, he found the service corridor from their previous incursion. The elevator waited at the end, requiring another code. He punched in the second sequence, holding his breath. The elevator doors opened. I'm in, he whispered, stepping inside. Only 2 buttons occupied the panel, M4 main level and S3, for what he assumed was sublevel 3. The descent took longer than expected, suggesting the sublevel was deeper than standard construction. When the doors opened, Marcus faced a stark white corridor that branched in 3 directions, clinical and sterile, like a medical facility. Are you seeing this? He asked, knowing Eddie was monitoring through the wireless camera. Crystal clear, Eddie confirmed. Looks like a hospital ward. Marcus moved cautiously, checking each intersection before proceeding. The first rooms he encountered contained medical equipment, examination tables, monitoring devices, surgical tools, preparation rooms, Eddie suggested, through the earpiece, for processing. Further down, Marcus discovered what appeared to be holding cells, small rooms with beds, secured with electronic locks, all empty. They've moved them, Marcus realized. Just like that security guard said. Keep going, Eddie urged. Find something we can use as evidence. At the corridor's end, Marcus discovered a large room dominated by computer equipment and filing cabinets, a command center of sorts. Jackpot, he whispered, approaching the main computer terminal. The system was active but locked. Marcus searched for access credentials, finding a sticky note on the monitor's edge with login information, the kind of basic security oversight found even in sophisticated operations. I'm in their system, he reported, navigating through files. They're organized as a medical research facility on paper, specialized subject procurement and processing. Translate that from psychopath to English, Eddie said. They're abducting women, preparing them medically, then selling them to international clients. Marcus found a database of subjects, including photographs. I've got them, Eddie. All 5 dancers, plus dozens more. Can you download the files? Marcus inserted a USB drive. Transferring now, but there's more. Shipping manifests, destination facilities, client lists. This is bigger than Westfield. It's a global network. As files copied, Marcus examined a large wall map displaying locations across the country, red pins marking major cities. connected by lines to international destinations. They have facilities in 12 cities, he reported, each centered around a mall or retail development owned by Crane's companies. Perfect cover, Eddie noted. High security, private access, legitimate reason for people coming and going. The file transfer completed. Marcus pocketed the USB drive and continued exploring. A locked door at the room's far end yielded to the same security code. Beyond it, Marcus discovered a tunnel large enough for vehicles, stretching into darkness. There's an underground passage, he reported. Looks like it connects to somewhere outside the mall. The warehouse, Eddie realized. That's how they transport without being seen. Marcus followed the tunnel until reaching a security gate. Through its bars, he could see loading docks in the distance, matching the warehouse. You're right, this connects directly to global logistics. They never transport above ground. Explains why we never saw the women being moved, Eddie said. Check your time, Shah. Fire departments arrived. Security will return to normal patrols. Soon, Marcus hurried back to the command center, searching for anything else useful. In a filing cabinet, he discovered paper records older transactions predating the digital system. Among them, a folder labeled Memphis 2022. With trembling hands, he opened it. Inside were processing documents for 6 women, including photographs. One face jumped out immediately, a young woman with Eddie's eyes and determined expression. Eddie, Marcus said quietly. I found Mariana. Silence on the come. Then a strained voice. Is she ... She was processed through here 3 years ago. Transferred to a facility in Dubai. Marcus couldn't bring himself to read the clinical details. I'm bringing the file. Get out now, Eddie said, voice tight with emotion. You've got 2 minutes before security resets. Marcus returned to the elevator, heart pounding. As the doors closed, alarms suddenly blared throughout the sub. What's happening? He demanded. They've detected the data breach, Eddie reported urgently. Systems on lockdown, move faster. The elevator stopped at the main level. When the doors opened, Marcus found himself facing Thomas Reynolds, the head of more security, flanked by armed guards. Detective Shaw, Reynolds said, smiling thinly. Or should I say, ex-detective. You've been quite persistent. Marcus raised his hand slowly, mind racing for an escape route. I know what you're doing here, Marcus said. The trafficking operation. The women, I prefer to think of it as specialized international placement, Reynolds replied. For very exclusive clients with specific entertainment needs. Behind the guards, Marcus spotted a service exit. If he could just reach it, ... Reynolds seemed to read his thoughts. Don't bother, Shaw. There's nowhere to run. The entire mall is locked down. Marcus's earpiece crackled. Eddie's voice, barely audible. Backup plan activated. 10 seconds. Before Marcus could wonder what that meant, the lights throughout the mall suddenly went dark. Emergency lighting flickered on, casting everything in dim red glow. Power grid failure, Eddie announced in his ear. Now run. In the red emergency lighting, Marcus made his escape, shoving past a surprised guard and sprinting through service corridors while alarms blared. Behind him, Reynolds shouted orders, his voice fading as Marcus put distance between them. He burst through an emergency exit into the rear parking lot, setting off another alarm. Eddie's car was nowhere in sight at their designated meeting spot. Eddie. Marcus hissed into his cum. Where are you? No response. The communication had gone dead. A security patrol rounded the corner, flashlights sweeping the darkness. Marcus ducked behind a dumpster, breath held as they passed within feet of his position. Once clear, he moved toward the perimeter fence, searching for the gap Eddie had identified in their planning. Finding it, he squeezed through, tearing his jacket but emerging on the other side. 3 blocks away. As arranged in their contingency plan, Marcus found a prepaid phone hidden beneath a loose brick in an alley wall. He dialed Eddie's emergency number. No answer. Something was wrong. Eddie wouldn't abandon their plan without communication. Not after discovering his sister's file. Not after coming this close. Using the burner phone, Marcus called Captain Reynolds. It's Shaw, he said when Reynolds answered. I need extraction. Jesus, Marcus. The commissioner's ordered your arrest. There's an APB out for you. Theft, assaulting security personnel. They're manufacturing charges to stop me, Marcus explained. I've got evidence. The trafficking operation is real. They're using the mall as a front. Reynolds sighed heavily. Where are you? Can't say over the phone. Meet me at Caroline's place. 1 hour. Caroline's. You mean you know where? Marcus hung up, hoping Reynolds would understand his reference to his sister's favorite childhood Parked without transportation, Marcus was forced to travel on foot, keeping to shadows and avoiding main streets. The USB drive felt heavy in his pocket, evidence that could bring down Crane's entire operation, if he could get it to the right authorities. At the park, Reynolds was waiting on a bench, alone, as requested. "You look like hell," Reynolds observed. As Marcus approached cautiously, "Feel worse?" Marcus scanned the area for surveillance or ambush. "Did anyone follow you?" "I'm not an amateur, sure." Reynolds gestured to the space beside him. "Let's see this evidence that's worth destroying your career over." Marcus remained standing. "First, tell me what you know about Eddie Reeves. Have they picked him up?" Reynolds' expression changed subtly. "Reeves turned himself in an hour ago." "What?" Marcus felt as if he'd been punched. "That's impossible. Came to the station with a detailed statement. Says you forced him to participate in your investigation by threatening to frame him for outstanding warrants. Says you're obsessed, delusional, convinced of conspiracies involving prominent citizens." Marcus shook his head in disbelief. "He's lying. We found evidence. He also surrendered all your evidence," Reynolds continued. "Notes, photographs, surveillance equipment. Said you planted them to support your theories. That's insane." "Why would he immunity?" Reynolds said simply. "Full pardon for his outstanding charges in exchange for helping us locate you." Marcus's mind raced. Eddie had betrayed him, handed everything over, discredited their entire investigation. But why, after finding his sister's file, after coming so close? "The USB drive," Marcus remembered suddenly. "He doesn't know about what I found tonight. I can still prove the sound of approaching sirens." Cut him off. Reynolds stood, expression grim. "I'm sorry, Marcus. I had to make a call." Realization dawned. "You're with them." "Not with them," Reynolds corrected. "Just not willing to commit career suicide over what's likely a delusional conspiracy theory." Police vehicles appeared at the park entrance, officers emerging with weapons drawn. "You said you believed me," Marcus accused. "I said I was hedging my bets," Reynolds corrected. Reeves' evidence was more compelling. His story made more sense. As officers surrounded him, Marcus felt the weight of complete betrayal. Eddie had abandoned him. Reynolds had sold him out. The system he'd served for 15 years was now arresting him to protect criminals. "Detective Marcus Shaw," an officer announced formally, "you are under arrest for trespassing, evidence tampering, harassment, and assaulting security personnel." As they handcuffed him, Marcus caught sight of a familiar figure watching from a distant city. Reeves, observing his arrest with an unreadable expression. The ultimate con, Marcus realized. He'd been played from the beginning. 3 days in a holding cell gave Marcus plenty of time to contemplate his mistakes, trusting Eddie, believing Reynolds would help, thinking he could expose a conspiracy protected by the city's elite. His public defender with a caseload visible in the dark circles under her eyes painted a grim picture. "They're pushing for maximum charges," she explained. "Breaking and entering, evidence, tampering, assault, harassment, interfering with a business operation. You're looking at 15 years minimum. It's a frame job," Marcus insisted. "I uncovered a human trafficking operation." Her expression reflected practiced sympathy. "Mr. Shaw, these delusions about conspiracies will only hurt your case. I recommend a psychiatric evaluation to establish diminished capacity." "I'm not crazy," Marcus hissed. "I have proof. The USB drive you claim to have. The one not found in your possession during arrest." She sighed. "Mr. Reeves has provided extensive documentation of your deteriorating mental state." Marcus fell silent. The USB drive. During the arrest, he'd felt someone bump against him in the chaos of pickpockets technique. Eddie had been there, watching. Had he taken the final piece of evidence? The guard announced visiting hours. Marcus expected no one. His family lived out of state. Colleagues had abandoned him. Friends had distanced themselves from the crazy ex-op, so he was shocked when Alina Collins appeared. "Mrs. Collins," Marcus greeted her through the visitation glass. "You shouldn't be here." "A man came to see me," she said without preamble. "Said you were arrested for trying to find Jasmine." "It's complicated," Marcus hedged. "How's Miguel?" "Staying with my sister in another state." Elena's eyes hardened. "This man said you found evidence. That you know where the women are." Marcus studied her carefully. "What man?" "He didn't give his name. Well-dressed, charming. Said he was your partner." "Eddie. But why contact Jasmine's mother after betraying him? Did he give you anything? A message?" Alina glanced around, then leaned closer to the glass. "He said to tell you the pickpocket returned your wallet. Said you'd understand." Marcus's heart raced. The USB drive. Eddie had taken it only to keep it from being confiscated. What else did he say? that I should visit you today at exactly 2 p.m., that you'd be released soon. Alina checked her watch. It's almost time now. On cue, alarms blared throughout the facility. Guards rushed toward the administrative section, shouting about a fire. Moments later, the power cut out, emergency lighting activated, and in the confusion, Marcus heard his cell door unlock with an electronic click. The security system had been compromised. Every cell in the block was open. Marcus hesitated only briefly before slipping out. In the corridor, inmates milled about in confusion while guards focused on the supposed fire. Moving against the flow, Marcus reached an emergency exit. Outside, a nondescript van waited, engine running. The side door slid open to reveal Eddie Reeves. "Get in, hero," Eddie said with his characteristic smirk. "Unless you prefer prison cuisine." Marcus climbed in, restraining the urge to punch him. "You betrayed me." "I protected you," Eddie corrected as the van accelerated away from the detention center. "They were going to kill you, sure. I needed them to think you were neutralized. By discrediting our entire investigation. By giving them what they expected." Eddie handed him a phone. The screen showed a news broadcast. Breaking news. Prominent philanthropist Robert Crane arrested this morning on charges of human trafficking, racketeering, and money laundering. FBI officials credit an anonymous tip containing extensive documentation. Marcus stared in disbelief. "You sent the evidence to the FBI, state FBI office, not local. With enough documentation to make ignoring it impossible." Eddie's expression turned serious. "Including the USB drive you recovered. Quite the smoking gun, detective. You picked my pocket during the arrest." "Old habits," Eddie shrugged. "Figured it was safer with me than with cops on Crane's payroll." As they drove, Eddie explained his elaborate deception. By turning himself in and discrediting Marcus, he'd convinced Crane's organization the threat was neutralized. Meanwhile, he'd compiled their evidence into an airtight case for federal authorities. "What about the women?" Marcus asked. "The dancers. That's where we're heading now." Eddie pointed ahead to a roadblock where FBI agents surrounded the global logistics warehouse. "Raid's already underway. Your captain actually came through once the FBI got involved. He provided additional evidence from within the department. Reynolds helped. After setting me up, hedging his bets, like he said, covering all angles." Eddie parked at a safe distance, Commander bringing people out. They watched from behind FBI lines as agents led a procession of dazed women from the warehouse. Medical personnel waited with blankets and ambulances. "My God," Marcus breathed. "How many?" 37, replied a female FBI agent who approached them. "Including your 5 dancers." "Agent Chen," she introduced herself. "You must be Shaw and Reeves. Your evidence package was ... comprehensive." "The dancers," Marcus pressed. "Are they all right?" "Sedated but stable. They were being prepared for transport overseas." Chen's expression darkened. "We've identified 6 more facilities across the country based on your intel. Simultaneous raids are underway." As medical teams guided the women to ambulances, Marcus spotted her Jasmine Collins, walking unsteadily but alive. When she saw him, recognition flickered in her eyes. "You found us," she said simply. "We did," Marcus confirmed, including Eddie with a glance. Agent Chen guided Jasmine to waiting paramedics. "We'll need statements from both of you," she told Marcus and Eddie, "after we've processed the scene." As they watched the rescue operation unfold, Eddie grew quiet, scanning each woman's face. "She's not here," Marcus realized. "Mariana." Eddie nodded, his usual facade cracking slightly. "The file said Dubai 3 years ago." Marcus placed a hand on his shoulder. "We'll find her, Eddie. This is just the beginning." The scale of Crane's operation stunned even seasoned FBI investigators. What Marcus and Eddie had uncovered at Westfield Mall was merely one node in an international network that had operated undetected for nearly a decade. "It's unprecedented," Agent Chen explained as they reviewed evidence in the FBI field office. "Not just the scale, but the sophistication. Corporate fronts, political protection, legitimate businesses as covers." The evidence board displayed a complex web centered around Robert Crane's companies, political connections, and trafficking routes. Photos of dozens of missing women connected to red pins marking mall locations across the country. "How did no one notice?" Marcus wondered. "People noticed," Chen corrected. "They were silenced, discredited, or bought off, like they tried to do with you." Eddie examined the international connections. "Any progress tracking overseas facilities?" "Interpol's involved now. We've identified locations in Dubai, Bangkok, and Monaco." Chen hesitated. We're prioritizing recent transports, but for women moved years ago. The implication hung in the air. Eddie's sister Mariana had been gone 3 years, a lifetime in trafficking operations. Marcus's phone rang. Reynolds. Sure. Reynolds greeted him awkwardly. Heard you're working with the feds now. Someone has to clean up the department's mess, Marcus replied coldly. For what it's worth, I didn't know the extent of it. Reynolds sounded genuinely regretful. The commissioner, half the brass, they were all on Crane's payroll. I thought you were chasing shadows. You could have trusted me. Could have, Reynolds acknowledged. Should have. For what it's worth, I've submitted my resignation. Department needs fresh leadership after this. Marcus ended the call without responding. Trust, once broken, wasn't easily restored. The next day brought the arrests of 17 city officials, including the commissioner, 2 judges, and 4 city council members. Crane himself remained in federal custody, denied bail as a flight risk. Media descended on the story, transforming Marcus from disgraced detective to whistleblower hero overnight. Eddie, characteristically, avoided the spotlight. Not good for business to be photographed with feds, he explained when Marcus questioned his absence from press conferences. What business? You've just helped dismantle a criminal empire. Eddie smiled enigmatically. There are other empires, sure, other battles. As the investigation expanded, they debriefed the rescued women. Jasmine Collins provided crucial testimony about the abduction process. They texted us that night, she explained. Each message claimed to have one of the others hostage, said if we didn't come to the service door alone, they'd kill our friends, so they used you against each other. Marcus realized that. Jasmine nodded. By the time we realized it was a trap, they had all of us. Then came the injections, the processing rooms. She shuddered. They treated us like inventory. Maya Rodriguez, whose journal had provided their first solid leads, described the preparation process. Medical examinations, behavioral conditioning, language lessons depending on our destination. They were customizing us for clients. The women's testimonies painted a horrifying picture of industrial-scale human trafficking masquerading as legitimate commerce. Medical records listed women as products with specifications and valuations. Financial documents detailed millions in transactions spanning continents. The truly terrifying part, Agent Chen confided, is how many people participated without questioning. Mall employees, security personnel, medical staff, all compartmentalized so no one saw the entire operation. Marcus thought of Thomas Reynolds, the head of mall security, now facing multiple federal charges. People convince themselves they're just doing their jobs, following orders, or they simply don't want to know, Eddie added grimly. As the case expanded, previously closed missing persons investigations were reopened across the country. Patterns emerged: women disappearing near malls undergoing renovations, ineffective police responses, witnesses mysteriously recanting. The FBI established a task force dedicated to tracking international victims, including Eddie's sister Mariana. The odds remained long, but for the first time in years, there was hope. In a rare moment of vulnerability, Eddie shared a photo of Mariana with Marcus, pre-law student. Raising our brother after our parents died, too smart for her own good. Like her brother, Marcus observed. Eddie smiled faintly. She was the honest one, straight arrow. I was always the family disappointment. Not anymore, Marcus told him. What you've done here, you've saved lives. Eddie doesn't bring her back. No, Marcus agreed, thinking of his own sister, Caroline. But it means her disappearance wasn't in vain, and it means other families won't experience what we did. Eddie nodded slowly. Never thought I'd help the good guys win one. First time for everything, Marcus replied. Even redemption. 3 weeks after the initial raids, Marcus received an urgent call from Agent Chen. We've located another facility, she said without preamble. Active operation in progress. Need you on site for identification. The location, an abandoned medical complex outside the city, had been discovered through financial records seized from Crane's offices. Unlike the warehouse, this facility wasn't disguised as a legitimate business. We believe this is their primary processing center, Chen explained as the tactical team prepared for entry, where women are held before international transport. Eddie had insisted on accompanying them, despite FBI reluctance to involve a civilian, particularly one with his background. I know their security protocols, he'd argued, and I've seen their facilities firsthand. The truth, which both men recognized but left unspoken, was simpler. Eddie needed to be there if his sister was found. The raid began at dawn. Tactical teams, breaching multiple entry points simultaneously while medical personnel stood by. Marcus, and Eddie watched from the command post as live feeds showed the operation unfolding. Movement in the East Wing, reported a team leader. Multiple subjects appear to be security personnel. Proceed with caution, Chen ordered. Hostage situation likely. The complex was larger than expected, with underground levels not shown on building plans. Team by team, FBI agents cleared rooms filled with medical equipment, holding cells, and processing stations. "Sir," called an agent, approaching with a tablet. "We've found their database. Currently catalogued subjects." The screen displayed profiles of 23 women, photographs, medical data, and processing status. Among them, Marcus recognized all 5 dancers from Westfield. "They're duplicating records," he realized. "This facility processes women before transferring them to distribution points like the warehouse. More efficient that way," Eddie noted clinically, though his eyes never stopped scanning the faces on screen. Assembly line methodology. A commotion on the tactical channel interrupted them. "Command, we've located subjects. East Wing 20+ individuals appear to be sedated. Medical team, move in," Chen ordered. Marcus and Eddie followed the medical personnel, ignoring protocols in their urgency. The scene they entered was clinical and horrifying. Women on hospital beds, IV lines, administering sedatives, medical monitoring equipment, tracking vital signs. Jasmine had been right. Inventory, not people. As medical teams began disconnecting IVs and assessing conditions, Marcus found the 5 Westfield dancers among the captives, alive but heavily sedated. "They'll recover," assured a paramedic. "Once the drugs clear their systems." Marcus felt a wave of relief. After weeks of searching, they'd found them not too late, not sold overseas, but alive and recoverable. Eddie moved through the room with singular focus, checking each face against the memory of his sister. His expression revealed the answer before he spoke. "She's not here," he said flatly. Before Marcus could respond, gunfire erupted from a connecting corridor. Security personnel had engaged FBI agents in another section of the facility. "Get down," Marcus shouted, pulling Eddie behind cover as bullets splintered the doorframe. The firefight was brief but intense. When it ended, agents reported 3 security officers down and 1 in custody. The captured man turned out to be Thomas Reynolds, the head of more security they'd confronted in the sublevel. Reynolds sat handcuffed in a makeshift interrogation room, surprisingly composed for a man facing multiple federal charges. "Mr. Reynolds," Agent Chen began, "you're in a position to help yourself by cooperating." Reynolds smiled thinly. "I doubt that. My employer doesn't tolerate betrayal." "Your employer is in federal custody," Marcus reminded him. "Mr. Crane is merely one executive in a much larger organization." Reynolds looked almost pitying. "You think arresting him ends this? The enterprise continues." Eddie stepped forward suddenly. "Where are the women sent to Dubai?" "The ones from 3 years ago." Reynolds studied Eddie with new interest. "Ah, the brother. She spoke of you." Eddie's composure cracked. "Where is she?" "International assets are managed differently. Rotated between private collections," Reynolds shrugged. "Some are still in service, others when they become problematic or age out." He left the implication hanging. Eddie lunged forward, restrained only by Marcus's quick intervention. "He's baiting you," Marcus warned. "Don't give him the satisfaction." As agents led Reynolds away, he called back, "You've won a battle, gentlemen. The war continues without pause." Outside, as medical teams loaded rescued women into ambulances, Marcus found Eddie staring at the horizon. "He could be lying about Mariana," Marcus offered. "He wasn't." Eddie's voice was hollow. "He recognized me as her brother. She told him about me." The realization hung between them. Mariana had been alive long enough in captivity to speak of her family, to hope for rescue, to be disappointed. As dawn broke fully over the complex, Marcus watched Jasmine Collins being guided to an ambulance, still groggy but walking. Soon she would reunite with her son Miguel. 5 families would receive the miracle of returned loved ones. But not all stories would end so hopefully. Not Eddie's, perhaps not his own. With Caroline still missing after 15 years. "This isn't over," Marcus told Eddie. "Reynolds is right about one thing, it's a larger organization, which means we keep looking." Eddie nodded slowly, his customary facade reassembling itself. "The game continues, detective, and so do we." 6 months after the raids, the media frenzy had subsided. Robert Crane awaited trial alongside dozens of accomplices. The Westfield Mall stood abandoned, its gleaming corridors empty as litigation determined its fate. Marcus had declined reinstatement to the police department, instead accepting a position with the FBI's new human trafficking task force. His experience with the case made him valuable. His skepticism of institutional protection made him effective. On a crisp autumn morning, he sat across from Jasmine Collins at a park while her son Miguel played nearby. "How's the recovery program?" Marcus asked. "Ongoing," Jasmine replied with a small smile. "But better. The nightmares are less frequent now." 5 dancers had enrolled in a specialized trauma program. Maya had become an advocate, speaking publicly about their experience to raise awareness. Tasha, Donnie, and Zoe were rebuilding more privately, supported by families and therapists. And Miguel, Jasmine watched her son on the swings. "Children are resilient. He knows something bad happened, but he's focused on having his mum back." They sat in comfortable silence until Jasmine asked the question she'd been avoiding. "The others, like us, the ones sent overseas, will they ever be found?" Marcus wished he could offer certainty. "International task forces are working on it. Every raid provides more intelligence, more connections. We're not giving up." "Good," Jasmine said simply. "Neither are we." Later that day, Marcus met Eddie at their usual spatter quiet diner where the staff didn't ask questions and the booth in back offered privacy. Eddie slid a file across the table. "Banking records from Crane's Cayman accounts. Transactions with a shell company in Dubai." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Should I ask how you obtained these?" "Probably not." Eddie sipped his coffee. "But they contain client names. Wealthy collectors who purchased exclusive entertainment packages through Crane's network." In the months since the initial raids, Eddie had proven surprisingly valuable to the investigation, his knowledge of financial fraud and shell companies helping track Crane's international operations. The FBI tolerated his unorthodox methods given the results they produced. "Any progress with Interpol?" Eddie asked, the casual tone not quite masking his real question. Marcus nodded. "Raid on a compound in Dubai last week. 12 women recovered. Mariana not among them, but they found records, Eddie, transit documents for women moved to other locations." Marcus hesitated, including one matching Mariana's description transferred to Monaco 2 years ago. Hope and pain ward in Eddie's expression. "She could still be alive." "It's possible," Marcus acknowledged, neither encouraging false hope nor extinguishing the genuine possibility. Their partnership had evolved over months of collaboration. Detective and the Conman, unlikely allies, united by personal loss and professional determination. The FBI officially listed Eddie as a confidential informant. Unofficially, he was Marcus's partner in what had become a global investigation. As they discussed next steps, Marcus's phone rang. "Agent Chen Shaw," she said without preamble. "We got a hit on your sister Caroline's case." Marcus's hand tightened. "On the phone? What kind of hit?" "Records from Crane's early operation. Before Westfield. She's listed in a transfer document from 2010. 15 years of uncertainty crystallized into painful clarity. Caroline hadn't run away as police had concluded. She'd been taken, like the dancers, like Mariana, like countless others. "Where?" Marcus managed to ask. "That's just it," Chen replied. "The document indicates she was processed, but then records show an extraction. It's a term we haven't seen before." "Meaning what?" "Unknown. But it's followed by returned to family." In the notation field, Marcus felt the world tilt. "That's impossible. She never came home." "I know. That's why we're reopening every aspect of her case." After the call ended, Marcus sat in stunned silence. Eddie, who had heard enough to understand, waited patiently. "They have a record of Caroline," Marcus finally said, "from 15 years ago. Says she was returned to family, but she wasn't." Eddie concluded. "No, which means either the record is wrong or—" Marcus couldn't finish the thought. "Or someone received her who wasn't family." Eddie completed gently. The implication opened new and disturbing possibilities that Caroline might have been alive all this time, living under a false identity, perhaps not even knowing her true past if she'd been young enough when taken. "We'll find her, sure," Eddie promised. "Like we'll find Mariana, like we found the dancers." As they left the diner, the weight of their ongoing mission settled around them. The Westfield Mall case had been merely one thread in a vast tapestry of exploitation that spanned decades and continents. Exposing Crane had been just the beginning. Outside, Marcus paused to watch a family walking by, parents holding a child's hands, swinging her between them with carefree laughter, the simple joy of security and belonging that had been stolen from so many. "The work continues," Marcus said, not just to Eddie but as a promise to all those still missing. To Caroline, to Mariana, to women whose names they didn't yet know. "Until everyone comes home," Eddie agreed. They walked together toward an uncertain future. a detective who'd lost his badge but found his purpose, and a conman who'd discovered his conscience through tragedy, unlikely allies in a battle that would continue long after headlines faded and public attention moved elsewhere. Because beneath the polished floors of ordinary life, in shadows most preferred not to see, the fight for human dignity continued, and so would they.